Happy Saturday morning. It is June 29th, 2024. And I've got another smile on my face because yesterday we got a chance to do an episode of You Have to Meet My Friends, where I go live on the podcast and I call my friends randomly and they have no idea. The first call was to William Simmons, my best friend in the whole entire world, and he was a little busy with his kids and he was doing some work. But then I got Torthell Robinson, a 3-time author, just dropping his 3rd book, and my big brother Rob, and it was unbelievable. If you haven't listened to those episodes, you can check it out on Spotify or on YouTube. We have the playlist for it. You Have to Meet My Friends. It's unbelievable. So I got to go on my walk this morning, and my walk was a little bit different. I got to take my shoes off and my socks off. I got to put my feet in the sand, and I was walking on the beach, and it was unbelievable. It made me think about Pops, because he would always tell me the greatest music in the world, son, is right across the street from your house. It's the beach. It's hearing the ocean. It's the waves crashing, all that stuff. It's the greatest music that you could ever hear. And as I was walking this morning, I was looking out at the water, and God just started to speak to me and tell me that, every single day, the water is the same, but the motion of the water is different. And there's never been a day in the last, 4 or 5 years that I've been going down to the beach that the waves are ever the same. The beach looks the same. It's always a little bit different. And what he was telling me through that was to stay fluid. And I probably learned this lesson the biggest when I opened my first business, and this was in 2006. And for the first 5 years, at least one time a year, we had a major break-in or a robbery at our business. Now, it's not something that I'm proud of. It's not something that I'm excited about, but it taught me a lot of lessons. And, one of the first lessons was a break-in packet. That break-in packet was to have all the invoices, the serial numbers, the inventory, vendors as far as windows and locks and different ways to be able to get our business back up and running. And we put it in a manila folder. We didn't do it in a digital folder like we would today, but we called it a break-in packet. And if it ever happened again, we learned the lesson that we could break open the packet and have our business up and running within the next couple of hours. The other thing that it did too is it gave us the opportunity to start to use a 70 and sunny dialogue when we were talking with our guests. When we were talking with our guests, we never talked about the break-in. We only talked about what was 70 and sunny. Everything was working well in our realm. And we didn't allow conversations to be derailed by negative information. And this was something that we learned from break-ins, from something absolutely nasty. And it's amazing because when we look at the challenges or the circumstances of the day and we stay fluid, then they become the opportunities that create endless growth for us within our life. And that's what we're looking at in Proverbs 29, the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day. We're doing that. So I'm excited for that. Stay fluid, stay fluid, stay fluid. Let's get this party started.
Nothing more on my mind. I got 2 shines, so every day I climb. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
Stay fluid, stay fluid, and stay fluid. As I was watching the water today, I was watching the waves. They kept crashing. No wave was exactly the same. And every single time that I go down to the beach, I'm looking and seeing, like, can it be rocky today? Can it be sandy? Could the tide be high? Could it be low? And it's constantly always changing, but it's the same water. It's the exact same place. And if we can gain anything today, it's just to stay fluid. the circumstances of the day. It's not the things that happen to us. It's just the way in which we react to them. But I tell you, if we're not prepared and we're, when we go into these things or when the challenges happen, that's when it can be challenging, or that's when we can start to focus or get derailed in those scenarios. So I want to go through our notes today. If you want the notes to reach out to me, send me a message. I'll get you taken care of. The commercial that you see is the Vibe Room. It's a live version of this, which is the podcast. And if you've been watching and rocking with the podcast, you've noticed that, we've added different shows. We have interviews. I interview some of the most iconic people in the world. I also do a show called You Have to Meet My Friends, where I go live and randomly call my buddies, and we have incredible conversations. And then we do things like this, which is called Inchstones. And Inchstones are just little tiny things that you could do today, actionable items, that when you pile them together, they become a milestone. And so we do these every day, and we do it on the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day, and we're just constantly seeking wisdom. This is something that you could listen to on your walk or on your run or while you're driving in your car on your way to work. I appreciate it no matter what. But let's dive right into Proverbs 29. It's the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day. And what I find interesting with Proverbs too, there's 31 of them, and there's 31 days in the month, so we could do the corresponding on the first, Proverbs 1, and so on and so forth. But what I find so interesting is as it gets towards the end, the charge or the invitation becomes stronger and stronger and stronger to go towards wisdom. And wisdom being the right use of knowledge, and wisdom, the beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. And what is the fear of God? It's just the respect of him. So, let's go into this. In verse 1, it talks about listening to wisdom. How do we listen to wisdom? It's the right use of knowledge. It starts with the fear of God. How do we fear God? Well, fear and respect was the word that, was interchangeable at that time. So how do we respect him? We simply spend time. And when we spend time with God, then we see that his words and his actions are in line. And when that happens, we start to gain respect, which is fear. And that is the beginning of wisdom, which is the right use of knowledge. So listen to wisdom in verse 1. In verse 2, doing right will bring you joy. And sometimes, I had a friend, his name is Roy Tuscany. I sent him out the notes today, and he said, man, there's some things when you're doing right, you gain a lot of opposition, which we're going to talk about later. But that's going to happen. When you're doing right, you're going to come up against opposition. But when you serve the one who created you, he's going to give you the strength to be able to walk right through that. And he's going to give you the wisdom to be able to see that it's not the circumstance. It's not a crazy circumstance that we need to focus on, but it's the opportunity in that circumstance. And so, in verse 4, it's integrity creates stability. And my buddy Dave Hamilton reached out to me and said, this is the verse that stuck out to me. Integrity creates stability. It created an incredibly stable business that sold, and he did absolutely phenomenal. But you know what? He was doing the right things when nobody was watching, and that's the reason why it was as stable as it is. David Hamilton, Julia Hamilton, your absolute inspirations. And honestly, you probably won't find them that much on social media, but those are the people that you need to study because they're doing the same thing in the dark as they are in the light. Verse 5 and 6, it talks about speaking truth in love. A lot of times people want to speak truth, but they don't bring love with it. Or sometimes they speak too much love, but there's not a lot of truth behind it. Speak truth in love. Verse 5 and 6, do the right thing always. That's verse 7 and 16. Wisdom will bring peace. And that's verse 8, 9, and 11. This is important. And let me say it again. Wisdom will bring peace. If you're not peaceful, seek wisdom. And this one is in verse 8, verse 9, and verse 11. Integrity will be challenged. Integrity will be challenged. Right? And that is in verse 10. And it goes back to David Hamilton. There's a lot of times where the light is not on or people aren't watching, and we have the opportunity to do the wrong thing and no one will ever see. That's where integrity will be challenged, because integrity is doing the same thing in the dark as we are in the light. And how do we stay fluid? We have integrity. In verse 12, tell the truth. In verse 13, God knows your heart, so you can't get away from that. Verse 14 is love people. If you love people at the highest level, it's amazing what can happen when you just love people. And when you love people, you're not just thinking of yourself, you're thinking of their best interest. And when you love people and when you build people, then people build the business. That's what my pops taught me, at least, and I've been utilizing it for the last 49 years, and it has worked out, although I was mad at my dad every time he told it to me. In verse 15, uninhibited, constant communication will break down all walls. 99% of challenges in businesses and relationships and friendships, it comes down to communication. I said this to them and they didn't listen. Well, maybe they were not listening because you weren't speaking their language. When we communicate at a high level and often and always, and it's uninhibited, that communication could set a foundation for every single thing else that we'll do, and it'll help us to stay fluid in our lives. In verse 17, build on a firm foundation. In verse 18, seek wisdom, foster hope, and protect it at all costs. If ever you lose hope in a relationship, in a business relationship, once that hope is gone or it's cracked, it's very hard to get it back. So seek wisdom, right? Foster hope, and then protect it at all costs. In verse 19, it talks about things are caught and not taught. Verse 20 is slow down. Verse 21, the ability to figure things out is one of the greatest strengths in the entire world. The University of FIO, figure it out. When we come into challenges, when circumstances happen, they give us the opportunity to be able to figure it out. And that muscle, when we work it, it could change everything. I had this happen with my daughter yesterday. She got her permit. So excited for her. Then she has to do driver's school. I said, why don't you just go ahead and look online while we're driving? I was driving. I said, why don't you go look online and find a driver's school? She's like, that's your job, Dad. I said, well, my job is to pay for the driving school. Your job is to go out and compare and contrast all of them and figure out which one is the best for us. And she looked at me and I said, you know what? When you want to move to New York or Boston like you want to, and you haven't worked the muscle of figuring it out, you're going to be in a world of hurt. I know it doesn't sound great to you now, but this will help in the future. Enroll in the University of FIO and major in it. Figure it out. In verse 22, stay calm. And if we stay calm, we'll stay fluid. And insecurity leads to pride. Pride brings the fall. In verse 23, hang out with great people. I have some of the greatest friends in the world. David Hamilton, thank you so much. Roy Tuscany, thank you so much for responding with my text today. It is my buddy yesterday, Greg Reed. Got to spend some time with him. My buddy Larry Namer. I love you so much. You add inspiration. When you hang out with great people, all you got to do is be yourself, and that's in verse 24. In 25 and 26, it says, only seek God's approval, the world will lead you astray. Think of this. Think of what was cool 2 years ago. Think of what they were telling you to do 2 years ago to catch the algorithm, and nowadays they're telling you a completely different thing. And then in 2 years, they'll tell you a completely different thing. But what I want to tell you is that when you seek just approval from God and you spend time with Him, the one that created you, it's not going to change. 3,000-year-old wisdom that we're reading from today, that I'm giving you my notes from 3,000 years ago, will work in today's society right now. Principle-based things that are built on a firm foundation, as opposed to building it on the sand and going after the shiniest thing that you possibly can have, which is the thing right now. Some of the things right now are principle-based, but always test them with wisdom. And the final one in verse 27, let's see, it's in 27, when you do right, you will gain opposition. When you do right, you'll gain opposition. If we know that from the outset, see, when you're doing wrong, no one has to worry about you. When you're doing right, you're a challenge. You're a challenge to people. You're a challenge to the other forces that are working in this world. When you're not doing right, you have no power at all because you're going to fall anyway. When you build stuff on shaky ground, no one worries about you. When you build something on a firm foundation, people start taking note and they start to gain a little bit of opposition. What are you doing here? And this was the one that stuck out to Mr. Roy Tuscany. Think about this. Think about being able to stay fluid. If we could all just stay fluid, the circumstances hit us. Life is going to hit us. God never promised that it was going to be easy. He said that it was going to be simple. But he also gave us a way out, because that way out of every single circumstance and creating it, taking it from a challenge into an opportunity, it's just that little fork in the road, and it's choosing to stay fluid. And how can we stay fluid? Listen to wisdom. Do the right thing, which will bring joy. Seek wisdom, and that will bring your parents joy. Integrity creates stability. Speak truth. Do the right thing always. He said it again. Wisdom will bring peace. Integrity will be challenged. Tell the truth. God knows your heart. Love people. Uninhibited, constant communication will break down all walls. Build a firm foundation. Build on a firm foundation. Seek wisdom. Foster hope and protect it at all costs. Things are caught, not taught. Slow down. The ability to figure things out is one of the greatest strengths in the world. Stay calm. Integrity leads to, insecurity leads to pride. Pride brings the fall. Hang out with great people. Only seek God's approval. The world will lead you astray. And when you do right, you will gain opposition. So if you have opposition today, get really excited, because you're on the right path. I want to encourage every single one of you, and I want to give you a challenge today. I have something, I actually hadn't done it in about a month. And actually, when I checked my notes, it was a month. It was May 29th that I did it the last time. These three right here really can change the game. What they are is little notebooks. And inside the notebooks, there's letters. And they sometimes they're 3 or 4 sentences. Sometimes they're a full page. But they represent my wife, my son, and my daughter. And just write a letter to the people who are the most important to you in your life, and do it longhand, do it, with pen, date it, and be very, very, very specific. This will change the way that you think about things. It'll change relationships. This can change a business relationship. If you're a boss, a CEO, and you simply write a note that is personalized to every single one of your direct reports, imagine what that could do. That's my challenge to you today, is just to write a simple letter, even if it's two sentences or one sentence, but make sure there's a name and something specific that person did that inspired you or that lit you on fire. And that's what we call speaking life, or in that instance, writing life. So this has been Proverbs 29, the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day. Check us out at the Vibe Room, July 23rd. Actually, I got 2 tickets. No one's messaged me. I've been letting you guys know that I have 2 tickets. I set them aside. They're just my personal tickets. Reach out to me. I've got them for you if you want to come and experience the live version of the podcast. It's going to be absolutely amazing. The other thing, if you're loving what you have here, we got a playlist on Spotify and on YouTube, which is called Wisdom in the Vibe. It's Inchstones, and it takes you through the daily 15, 20 minutes. Take your walk. Let's listen. Let's download some wisdom. We've also got the interview side of the show, which is I interview some of the most iconic people in the world, and they give advice to my kids by name. And then we have You Have to Meet My Friends, which is a hilarious concept, and the shows are phenomenal, getting a chance to be able to have the time with my friends. So it's been it's my honor. This is probably, I've told people the podcast is the greatest project that I've ever done in my entire life, and I've done some pretty cool projects. So excited about that, and I want to thank every one of you for rocking with the podcast. If you want to change the vibe of your conference and you own a company, the link will be in the bio, and we'll send out the speaker reel for you. It's absolutely phenomenal, and I love you all. My name is Kelly Cardenas, and I'm officially off the hot seat. Peace, love, and soul.
Nothing more on my mind. I got 2 shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we can